Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on Doc Search and Ask AI. I'm Chuck Meyer. I manage the DevRel program here at Algolia, and I'm very excited to be your host for today's panel. It's been 10 years since Algolia released the original Doc Search as a way for developers to make their open source documentation searchable. And here we are 10 years later. Doc Search is now available to anyone with public technical content and is integrated into many popular documentation frameworks like Docusaurus, VitePress, and Starlight. If you're looking at docs and see an Algolia logo in the search box, it's probably Doc Search. The way dev search documentation has changed a lot in the last 10 years. Let's be honest, it's changed a lot in the last 10 months. With demand for LLM-powered Ask the Docs capabilities and the changing landscape of documentation, the team knew Doc Search needed a bit of a glow-up. With that said, I'm very happy to welcome the Doc Search team to the stage to talk about the changing landscape of search for documentation and how Doc Search v4 meets that challenge. The first speaker I'd like to welcome is Tatyana Herman. Tatyana is the Senior Product Manager for Crawler, Doc Search, and Ask AI. She's been managing this whole stack since the inception of self-service Crawler, and she's a true citizen of the world. She's lived each third of her life in a different continent and speaks 4 languages. So do you want to tell us the continents or the languages? Which do you prefer, Tatyana?
I'll go with the languages that might be more interesting. So there is English, obviously. Then there is Hebrew, Russian, and Ukrainian.
Wow. Okay. So lots of hot languages these days. Well, welcome to the panel, and thank you for being our PM extraordinaire. I'm also going to bring to the stage Natan Yagudayev. Natan is the engineering manager alongside Tatyana on the same stack of products. Welcome, Natan. Natan built the initial prototype of our Ask AI capabilities. He has deep experience in the startup space, bringing several to an acquisition stage, and now he's bringing that kind of growth mindset to the Doc Search team. I think an interesting thing about Natan is that he learned how to program as a teenager, running his own RuneScape server. So you're an old school gamer.
Oh, yeah. Huge old school gamer.
That's awesome. Well, welcome, Natan. Finally, I'm going to bring to the stage Sian King. Sian is a staff product designer here at Algolia, and she did the UI refresh for Doc Search and also all the design work for Ask AI. Sian, your interesting fact about yourself is that you once nearly ran over Usain Bolt in your Mini.
Yes, that is correct. It was quite a close call, but it's all fine. Obviously, he's still running around now.
It's good that he's so fast, right?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. Welcome all of you to the stage. So the first question for our panel is going to be focused towards Tatyana as the product manager. I know it's impossible to pack 10 years of history into like 5 minutes, but I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. Can you give us a brief history of what Doc Search is and how it got to where it is now?
Originally, Doc Search was created as a gift for developer community. It was born to solve one thing, make developer documentation instantly searchable, and it was purposely built for technical documentation. And now, as Doc Search became more recognizable and popular, you can see it on sites like React, Tailwind, Vue, many others. And I would say that from early on, when we took over this project, there are several non-negotiable critical things that for us were suckered that just became this instantly recognizable Doc Search experience. So a keyboard-first approach was a Command K shortcut that everyone now, like every developer today knows and expect to see in developer documentation. That was our top priority, to keep this kind of experience. There's also a very distinct and recognizable search UI for Doc Search. The moment you see this search bar, you already know what to expect. It's simple. And another aspect, a very critical element of Doc Search is how easy it is to set it up. You can go live in minutes, and that's why developers loved it so much and adopted so widely. So something I want to tell you, kind of a behind-the-scenes story about Doc Search. We just mentioned how widely adopted doc search is by developers. So there are thousands of applications over those 10 years. And you might not know that in the early days, every application was manually reviewed. There was an actual human. Yeah, you
Yeah.
laugh, but actual
I'm very
human.
familiar with this.
Yes. Of course, it kept the quality high, but it also did not scale that well. So, moving fast forward to today, when we're talking about modernization and the glow up for doc search, one of the improvements we did was this instant and automated onboarding. You can get onboarded into doc search in pretty much minutes. Yes, like it's you can count, you can put a stopper, and it's going to be super fast.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I feel like that's part of the reason that we've been able to open up Doc Search to a wider variety of sort of products, right? It used to be just open source documentation, which gave us a very narrow scope, but it seems like with this new system, we can kind of open it up to more technical documentation.
That's correct. And we also made sure that, with all the balancing between the old and new, with all the updates that we did, we wanted to evolve DocSearch into the newer, more modern version, but also never add any friction. So the upgrade is easy. There are no break-in changes. It still works well out of the box with frameworks like Docusaurus, BitPress, many others. Also, in addition to that, we layered in generative AI capabilities like conversational answers directly inside your documentation with Ask AI functionality. And this is really gives this a modern experience to developers today.
One thing that's really interesting to me is I came into Algolia through DocSearch. I was a DocSearch user. And once you know about DocSearch and you use it yourself, it's one of those things that you can't unsee, right? Like every place you go, you start seeing it in the documentation. I don't know, folks in the audience, where you've seen it, but I know every place I go, I tend to see DocSearch search within the documentation sites that I go to. Sean, I'm going to bring you into this conversation. What were some of the things that as you were looking at doc search and sort of identifying like what people liked about it, what are the identifying factors of the doc search UI historically?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the most crucial parts of the UI was that kind of bottom panel that we have, which shows the keyboard shortcuts and obviously mentions the Algolia logo. That's one of the ways that people recognize that it is powered by Algolia, and also obviously gives us good growth marketing. So that was something I knew that was really fondly looked at from a developer point of view. And obviously, in general, the ease of use and how easy it is to interact with it.
Mm.
So that was something I had to ensure that we would be able to maintain as we look to evolve the search experience.
Yeah, yeah. And as a developer, I know that I rely very heavily on muscle memory. I like things to kind of always be the same. When a command changes or something changes, it irks me, frankly, because then I have to learn something new. So I would imagine that was probably a challenge for you as you were thinking about it. Like, I'm glad we're keeping the command K. I'm very familiar with the command K. I feel like it's weird when I go to a documentation site and that doesn't work and I have to learn another command. But were there also things about sort of the layout and the way the documentation was sort of surfaced that had to change?
Yeah, so one of the crucial things was looking at how you would go from the keyword search to the Ask AI functionality, and whether we would allow a keyboard shortcut specifically for Ask AI.
Mm.
And as you start to dig into it, there are a lot of sites which use different shortcuts for many different scenarios. So what we ended up leaning into is, as you type in the main box, which is used for both keyword and Ask AI, again, to kind of make that more seamless as just one place that you have to type. The first response that's shown is Ask AI. So you only need to press enter to activate that experience, or you can easily kind of tab down to then go to the keyword results instead.
Cool. That's really cool. So, kind of thinking in terms of design and thinking in terms of sort of bringing in this SKI capability, Nathan, you kind of brought in the original POC for Ask AI. So you're kind of making up, I think, a UI as you went along, right? So I was kind of curious how you kind of built that up and what you saw sort of the crucial elements to bring into it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, with the POC, the main goal was to create some type of conversational back and forth for a user. The initial POC didn't even have that. We didn't have any follow up questions. or the ability to actually retrieve content from an index.
Mm.
It was just like more of a, hey, here's this AI demo, and we're just asking a bunch of random questions to see if it gives us a good answer. And that's just a POC. Like I think it's easy to spin up an app that's a chat bot and show the whole world like, hey, I built this. But when you're talking about like an open source community and doing it on a package that's publicly available, it's a bit more difficult. So you have to kind of think about the design aspects, the product aspect, and also the technical aspect of it and how we're going to implement it.
Mhm. Yeah. And so, Sean, I know you're kind of, as you were thinking about the design piece, I'm sure there was some of it was just sort of refreshing, making feel more modern, and some of it that was, more along the lines of like, how do I change the experience to bring in this Ask AI without, breaking the existing experience? Were there any sort of paths you went down that you were like, definitely don't do that if for folks that are trying to implement this themselves?
I guess one of the main things I explored a lot was whether the Ask AI functionality should stay in the modal or whether
Mm,
we would have a separate chat panel. And
mm,
it felt like the kind of right decision for that first version was to house them both together, to kind of have that experience. Because we wanted to understand more, when do users go from keyword to chat, and make it easier to go between the two. Now, having thought about that more, we're starting to get more customer feedback. There are customers who want to have that kind of side panel.
mm.
So that's something we're starting to explore. Next is moving from kind of having a separate search bar and a chat. How do those two things interact with each other? So I feel like that was one of the big decisions that we needed to make. And I think we made the right call for the first version, as it felt more seamless. But then there are lots of different websites. That's one thing about this product. It's white label. It needs to work on many different sites.
Mm.
So having more flexibility as we kind of grow the experience more and have different versions that work for different types of websites and experiences.
But imagine the two different ways of engaging with the docs probably use the real estate very differently.
Yeah. I would say that there's different experiences where sometimes you want that kind of fixed side panel. We've also seen other things where they might even have a full screen search where they kind of immerse you into, a full screen chat experience.
Hmm.
So they can feel very different. But what's integral to all of those is how well the actual AI responds. And I think that's what the team's absolutely nailed. If the response itself isn't useful and isn't actually answering your question, then it doesn't really matter how or where I kind of position it, whether the conversation is in the modal or on the side or on an overlay. It's really important that you have the right responses to the questions the user is asking.
And if I'm like a, curmudgeonly old developer, which by the way I am, I'm just like, I'm used to this keyword. I'm used to how this functions. Is it going to feel the same as it always did for me?
Yeah. We
Okay.
wanted to make sure it's still easy to use. It needs to be fast. We want the latency to be really low. So all of that is still maintained. We're kind of keeping the parts that people love about stock search: fast, easy to use. You can get your keyword results straight away if you need to. But then it's kind of adding that extra layer of, oh, maybe I will ask a question instead of actually searching for that keyword. And you never know. These people who are a bit more old school might start trying it out and find they like it better.
Yeah,
That's me. That's me too. Go ahead.
uh,
Sorry, Nathan.
and I was just gonna add, like, even the whole entire flow itself, like the search bar at the top of the modal, the fact that the search bar or the text box, right, when you're talking to Ask AI remains at the top, is something that we wanted to keep. And also, it's not a traditional chat experience. Usually when you open a chat, it's read from bottom up, right, rather than top down. And so we felt like that was the most fluid approach, just to keep that same look and feel of doc search.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense.
I would also add that this kind of a embedded experience when you have the Ask AI conversational chat together in the same window with the keyword, that targeting the developer experience and documentation specifically. Because when you think about developers coming to the docs, they might have different types of questions. You might run into an error and you have a specific error with a specific error number, and you just want to plug it as a keyword and just see the resulting page that will explain to you how to fix it. Or you might be maybe getting started and you're not sure what to search for. You might not be yet familiar with different products, and you just want to ask, how do I do X with Y? In that case, Ask AI, the more conversational aspect of search is going to be more useful for you than trying to figure out, wait, which keywords do I use?
No, that makes sense. Like there's, that historically has been very challenging is sort of getting to like, okay, what is this error? What does it mean? And how do I get to a fix? Anything that shortens that is definitely very valuable. I want to talk a little bit about the implementation of it, Nathan. So I was curious, what sort of challenges did you have? We have these indices, we have these LLMs. What challenges did you face sort of putting it all together and integrating this into a 10-year-old code base at this point?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, DocSearch v3 didn't support any of this. So obviously there was a front end aspect to this, and getting the code up to par to support this. But on the back end side, we also didn't have the infrastructure for any type of system capable of retrieving your records from an index and then building an LLM answer for you on the fly. So we also had to build that infra. I think the hardest part for us was a lot of tweaking. What works and what didn't work. We looked at index chunking. We even introduced a way to have the crawler, which a lot of customers of DocSearch use the crawler to get the data into. The crawler had a new feature now that has markdown indexing. So we
Mm.
take your data from your website and turn it into markdown indexing for easier LM consumption.
That lives outside of the Ask AI capabilities, right? That's just a crawler feature at this point, or
Exactly.
okay.
Beyond that, like with Ask AI, we also had to look at the way an index was structured. Not every single index and the way the records are structured are compatible with Ask AI. Even though, yes, you can give an LLM a bunch of JSON data, it might not give you the most accurate answer. Obviously, if there's not enough content in these records. So we slowly figure out a method to say, hey, if you're a crawler user, we recommend this approach. If you're not a crawler user, we recommend this approach as well, so that you can at least have some type of content in your records that the LLM can easily identify and actually build an accurate answer. In our initial POC, it was also very slow, right? We had to worry about latency. And so the good thing about Algolia is that it has amazing retrieval. So we were able to take Algolia's retrieval and plug it into the AG part of RAG, which is allow the LLM to kind of build an answer based on the search hits that we allowed it to do.
Just to kind of dig in on that a little bit, the original latency, was that latency inherent to just the model trying to do it through its own sort of retrieval processes, or
It was a mix of things. One was the fact that the indexes could be differently structured. Some indexes might be larger than others in terms of records. Another part was that tooling wasn't readily available. So a big thing about Ask AI is that we allow the LLM to perform tool calls
Hmm.
on the user's behalf. And so now the LLM itself can actually perform a search against Algolia's index. And that was a big point, was to allow the LLM to just do what it needed to do and not try to force it in terms of looking for an answer. Um, and with tool calls being available, that's when we were able to reduce latency. And then also with the other optimizations like synonyms, removing certain words, chunking of the records, things like that, we were able to actually get latency down pretty quick.
Hmm. And I would imagine prompting was probably an important part of this as well.
Oh, 100%. Not only do we ask the user to give their own instructions and prompt, but we also have a prompt that we built system wide that allows us to control and fine tune the whole experience. So you're not getting started from scratch. We know how difficult it is to set up an AI or some type of RAG system to do this for you. And so we really wanted to make it easy. Like, hey, I want an assistant that does X, Y, and Z on my docs. Here are some basic instructions, like my website's name, and then we do the rest for you. We tell the LLM how to do the searches. We tell the LLM how to structure them, relevant resources, etc. So you don't have to worry about any of that.
Hmm. Was there any like crucial piece to the prompt that one of you can share that was like adding it was like really effective or really had an interesting impact?
The big thing with prompting is the ability to hijack, a prompt.
Hmm.
I think the crucial piece was that the prompt we went through like at least 50 or 60 iterations of the prompt because people kept trying to break it. Like we even had a thing where one of our engineers one of our product managers was like, "Hey, can it write a haiku for cats?" And it did. And we are like, "No, that shouldn't be possible." And so on the prompt level, also, even after the call is made and the LM is trying to give you an answer, we also added some security as well.
Hmm.
So
So scoping is very important here, it sounds like.
yes.
Got it. There's a lot of tooling emerging in this space, like generative AI, agentic workflows, all of this. And even within Algolia, there's even sort of a scope of tools, right? We've got Ask AI, we've got Agent Studio. People are building their own RAG solutions. There's MCP injection into LLMs. And the LLMs themselves, obviously, are sort of building up different capabilities. How do you see Ask AI as fitting into this? Why is it an important tool? Why would people go to Ask AI?
I think the way you can approach this is imagine it as a ladder of solutions, and your entry point would be Ask AI. Ask AI is a packaged out of the box RAG solution. It is basically plug and play. It's very easy to adopt. You don't really need to do much configuration, and it's just very straightforward and very easy solution for someone looking for a general site search documentation, site search. It has a dashboard, it has a playground, it has a lot of nice features to optimize, like feedback that you get from your customers, your users. You can improve based on that. You can identify any content gaps. Then your next step would be Agent Studio. So at some point, for certain use cases, you might feel that Ask AI becomes a bit too restrictive for you. You might want to connect external systems. You might be looking into other use cases, for example, e-commerce. You might want a little bit more than just chat functionality. Maybe you want to preview search results with nice icons and links. Ask AI for that will be too restrictive, but Agent Studio will allow you to have this higher level of customization, integrations, advanced workflows. It basically gives you the flexibility to design the experience you want. Now, beyond that, the next step, you could think of it as an expert level step in this ladder, would be the MCP. So MCP will unlock for you the maximum extensibility and orchestration capabilities. So imagine you might already have an agent flow set up in your system. You might want to include Algolia tooling in addition to what exists today. It may be a very technical project. Then MCP would be your best solution for that.
Hmm. And I think an important piece of it too is that you've built Ask AI kind of out of these different building blocks too, right? So if you want the markdown capabilities, that's baked into the crawler. The Ask AI itself is its own self-sufficient thing. It doesn't have to be just for docs, although I think it's kind of tuned for it right now, right?
I would say it's also been quite important for us to look at it holistically and understand from the point of view of developers and business users who are building these agents, making sure we kind of have those foundational pieces, like making sure the terminology you're using is the same, whether you're using Ask AI or the Agent Studio, for example, understanding what control or configurations the users might need in certain contexts, how you provide more guidance and help has also been important. So that's why we've started to develop more of a kind of AI design system to kind of
Mm.
build these patterns so it's easy for users to go from Ask AI to the Agent Studio and understand how things work and where to find things.
So that's an interesting point too. Obviously we have front end libraries for classic search, right, with instant search and autocomplete. Um, is it possible, or will it be possible in the future to sort of pick and choose between these different components?
I think to a degree, I think it's about understanding what are the different use cases of what components are relevant. So obviously there's lots of different tools that you can create. And what we'd like to do is get to a place where if there's a particular tool call, then we can recommend to use this particular component in that instance. So
Mm,
for example, exploring like in an e-commerce context, what a product carousel would look like, or what is the optimal way to get users to refine down results in a conversational AI.
mm.
So we're exploring more things around that. What are the right patterns and being able to recommend them at different points.
Yeah, even for doc search itself, being as it's built for docs, we're slowly expanding into the site search use case. And so that allows us to really think about things from a different point of view. Um, someone might not want a side panel. They might just want it in their search bar. And so
Mm,
that's something that we're also looking into. Another cool thing about doc search and something that we're also looking into is the ability to have like contextual based answers. So if you're already on a page, um, we might be able to actually give you relevant context right there on fly.
mm.
Or if you click a button on some doc's website and say, "Hey, give me some more information about this," we want to build it in a way so that Ask AI or Agent Studio or an MCP can easily do that for you.
Got it. Got it. Give them the context exactly where you are.
Exactly.
Love it. So we can't really talk about an Ask AI or an LLM based product without actually talking about the models. Nathan, can you tell me a little bit about like what models we've baked in or what models we support for Ask AI?
Yeah, of course. I mean, being that Ask AI is a BYO LLM,
Oh,
bring
okay.
your own LLM, we had to support at least, one or two providers and models. I'm happy to say that we support over like 50 models
Mm,
and over 10 different providers. So the most popular ones being OpenAI, Google Generative AI, Anthropic. We even have support for Meta models through Deep Infra, and
DeepSeek.
and then also we have a DeepSeek available.
oh, DeepSeek. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Any Gemini yet?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people. We've actually seen a lot of back and forth. So it's a big competition between GPT 4.0 and 4.1, and then also Gemini 2.5.
Mm.
And we see a lot of people bouncing back and forth. And DeepSeek surprisingly is also up there as well.
And I think the other thing people, think a lot about is like token costs, right? I guess you're talking about latency and you're talking about sort of building these windows. Like, how are we doing? Is there any sort of cost management baked into the product?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, we allow when you first set up your Ask AI assistant, we allow you to set the max tokens. That was the top priority for us is to set max tokens, allow you to control that. On top of that, we also let you control how many hits an LM can use for a search request. So whenever a search comes back from Algolia, it could be 7, it could be 30, it could be 2. It's up to you, and that also reduces costs a lot. Thanks to our beta users who have been rigorously testing this on their sites and telling us about their token consumptions. We actually did some fine tuning a couple of weeks ago where we were able to reduce the amount of token costs by 40 to 50% on our back end. And hopefully, that will save a lot of our new customers and our existing customers money.
Right on. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time for now. So I'm going to thank my panelists, Tanya, Nathan, and Sean. Thank you all so much for participating today. For folks that are watching, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I think our panelists will be hanging out in chat to answer your questions. And now I'm going to hand it back to Chuck. So back to you, Chuck.